Well, the student hotel concept itself is financed with the support of initially of the Carlyle Group, based here in London, and currently with the Perella Weinberg Group. For them, it was an attractive proposition, but I think we're an exception in the market. One of the problems with the student housing market that it was part of the social housing sort of doctrine, with the emphasis on affordability, and very strongly regulated. But some of the deregulations have indeed made it a much more attractive product. For example, the minimum size of the studios that were built, or the rooms that were built, is now much more in line what a market in the UK requires, like say 15 square meters instead of 28 square meters. But it's still not really a market as you would like to see as an institutional or more an opportunistic investor. So we see, for example, models where the yields are very low because they are built and invested in by international funds on a nomination agreement from a social housing operator. So the social housing operator guarantees for long term. That's not necessarily the wish of the investor. At the same time, and I think that's more from the demand side, the hot topic at the moment is internationalization of higher education. Cities like Delft reported this year 40% extra international students. They almost have a one-on-one demand for student housing. And that's why you see universities and cities, speaking of partnerships, increasingly demanding from the market to come up with solutions, because the universities don't have the funds anymore, nor is the government interested in funding student housing. So it has to come from the private sector, but the private sector also is setting conditions. So yeah, again, there's room for improvement, but there are now models for the student housing that we have been doing, especially focused on international students. It's been a great success. This year we opened in Amsterdam, very close to the city center. We broke rental records. We sold out months before with rents for like over 830 euros per room. So I think we underestimate what people are looking for. It's a product that is not based on square meters. It's a service product, and that's why I think it is different from Dutch residential, where sometimes the service is even lower than what you see in countries like Germany or France. So yeah, I would like to keep it separate, but there's definitely there are parallels.
Okay, good. Marcus, you wanted to. Maybe looking at student housing, I think it's if you look at the countries where student housing is a popular sector or a really institutionalized sector, it's mainly in the countries where private rental sector is not existing, or it's very small. And I think that's what we have to keep in mind, because in Germany, for instance, we are talking about student housing for a long time, but it's not really taken off in that to such a large extent, because simply we have a functioning private rental market where students can group together to 2, 3, 4 students renting one big apartment and sharing it. And I think that's why also we're talking in the Netherlands about it, because simply we have a very small private rental market, and the social housing market, students might not be the typical tenants the owners want to have, and therefore I would say student housing, a functioning student housing market or a big student housing market, is always a little bit of an indication how well functioning is the private rental sector. And looking at the UK, for instance, try as a student to find an apartment on the private rented sector. It will not be affordable for the student. So that's why student housing is working in the UK. So it's a little bit of a mirror image, always what's going on. And we have to keep in mind from a purely risk perspective, it's something different from my point of view, because it's an operating business and not like the high granularity of the tenant base only indirectly and not directly like private rental.
Can I say one thing about that?
That's allowed.
Yeah, because I mean, overall, you're absolutely right. But I think when you look at where's the dynamic in the market, it's these international students that have a housing guarantee from the universities. And for the university to deal with all the private small owners is a big hassle. So we see a big demand for what they call purpose-built student housing, similar to what the UK universities did.
I think the Netherlands is known for having many good universities in many different cities, and we have for a long time put students in very outskirts, very low quality places, in containers mostly, and I think time has come that there is room for development, partly by office conversions to add quality to that market, and I think there is much more connection to the regulated rental market than many people think, and in that segment there is a large value gap, a yield spread between student housing and standard residential. The net yield of student housing direct let product is about 6%, while for standard residential it's 4.25 to 4. That's a big spread, and that's purely because it's just an immature market currently, and that will change in the future, I think.